Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fells of Great Britain. Today our walk is in the Lake District and it starts in the Honister Pass, which is near Buttermere. We're going to take the pack horse road from the Slate mine at the top of Honister Pass, and we're going to follow that round all the way to the descent to Wasdale. But we're not actually going to go down to Wasdale. We're going to peel off to the left off the path and head steeply up the very rocky face of Great Gable. The walk today is about 6 miles and the total ascent is about 2,000 feet. It should take 5 or 6 hours. It will take in some of the most splendid vistas that you can experience in the Lake District. I've done this walk a few times before in various types of weather and it never fails to delight. Well, we start our walk today at Honister Slate Mine. It's a busy tourist attraction these days. Back in the early 1800s it was a thriving green slate quarry, which is one of the most prized types of slate to be found in England. The quarry is still operating and making mainly bespoke specialist items. And then up until around 1850, the slate was removed from here over this path that I'm on now. This is the pack horse path, which goes to Wasdale, and it's going to take me to the foot of our mountain for today, which is Great Gable. And as you can see, there are tourist trips up to the quarry and to some very extreme activities involving traversing the rock face on ropes. Up there in the distance you can see Honister Crag, and coming round here we've got Dale Head, and looking back down to the quarry we're looking down into Honister Pass. So here we go, the path begins, setting the pace from the start, very steep. So let's take a look at the map and see where this route is going to take me today. The Lake District National Park lies in the northwest of England and is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, renowned for its beautiful landscapes and unique geology. Our walk starts at the Honister Slate Quarry at the top of the Honister Pass, and we begin our walk by ascending a steep path out of the quarry onto open fellland. The path takes us west at first and then swings sharply to the south for another 3 miles. At this point in the walk, the ground is rising slowly as we proceed to the head of the Ennerdale Valley, and along the way the views open up to give splendid vistas of Great Gable ahead, with views also of Kirk Fell and Pillar to the west. This path is known in Cumbrian legend as Mose's Trod. The path now veers to the west around the head of the Ennerdale Valley and then rises steadily over rocky ground to Beck Head at the foot of Great Gable's northern flank. We then take the scrambling path up the northwestern side of Great Gable's northern flank, finally arriving at the summit of this fine mountain. Along with Helvellyn, Skiddaw and Sca Fell, Great Gable forms one of the 4 highest peaks to be found in the Lake District. And as we swing round now to the north, we can see the scree path running down from Windy Gap to join Mose's Trod. It stands at some 2,950 feet above sea level and grants to the climber stupendous views of the surrounding Lakeland countryside. So we're well on our way now. It's pretty windy. The weather forecast has not been lived out so far. It was going to be a sunny, clear day. It's quite sunny, but the wind has really picked up. But I'm heading off now to the head of the Ennerdale Valley, which is where the ascent up Great Gable starts. So the panoramas are really opening up now. Over there we've got, in the foreground, haystacks, and then in the far distance there you can see High Crag first, and then in the cloud there, High Stile. And then coming around here we've got Fleetwith Pike and Honister Crag. Now this path that I'm following now is called Mose's Trod. As legend would have it, there was once a character who worked at the Honister Slate quarry who used to make bootleg whiskey in his hut, apparently, and he would move this across the fells along this path, this pack horse path to Wasdale, together with the slate. So he would secrete his whiskey in the packs loaded onto the horses and ponies or whatever it was they used to come across this path, and then sell it over on the coast. His name was Moses. I don't think I've ever heard of anybody in modern times called Moses. But this was in the early 1800s. This path fell into disuse from 1850 onwards. So Moses used to frequent this path in the early 1800s, in the early Victorian period. And so that's why this path is called Mose's Trod. Right, finally back on a decent path. I just went through a lot of bog and a very indistinct path, but I'm now back on the main trail and I'm looking straight at this sheer face of Great Gable, and it's a lot more daunting than I remember. Let's just hope I can complete this route today. Let me show you. So there she is. This is the most impressive vantage point, or the viewing point for Great Gable. And I'm hoping to track up the side of the mountain there. On the right hand side you can see that ridge. I'm hoping to get round to there. I've done it once before. It's really steep, but let's see if we can do it once again. But I have to say the weather is not quite as good as the last occasions. So panning round, we've got a Kirk Fell there and Pillar coming into view. I think that's called Windy Gap through there. The plan is to come down there this afternoon. I'm not sure I'm going to return via that route. It looks a bit steep. I've done it once before. But here comes the sun poking through the cloud that's just covering Great Gable now. I think what we've got here is a katabatic wind where the warmer air comes over from the south of the mountain and then falls down this northern flank. It's beautiful. Right. Just about to start the final push for the top. This path is about as steep as I remember. Could be worse, I suppose. Let's take a look at this. There we go. Probably about half an hour to get up this. But we can see two of the great valleys in the lakes here. We can see down into Wasdale there, and then over onto Kirk Fell, and then down into Ennerdale. So we've got two valleys. Very, very windy. Having to hold my hat, barely stand up in it. Well, I'm at the top now, having some lunch, and it's impossible to stand up in the wind. So I've just decided to sit in this little rocky area here, which is out of the wind, and eat my lunch. I'll try and show you some views from where I'm sat right now, but I'm not going to wander around. I can't even keep my hat on. It must be 60 miles an hour. It's far worse than I've ever experienced on the summit. It's really quite exhilarating, but difficult to deal with from a photographic standpoint. So anyway, let me show you the views that I've got from where I'm sat. So over there we've got Great Crag and High Stile, and on the very far right we've got Haystacks, and then we look round, pan round into the Ennerdale Valley, and then we've got Kirk Fell, and then ranged in the background you can see Pillar, Sca Fell, Steeple, Red Pike, and then around here we've got Ewbarrow, and behind Ewbarrow we've got Middle Fell, and then in the far distance Seathwaite, and then over here, I'm not even going to attempt to stand up, we've got Sca Fell. Now, it always comes as a bit of a surprise to fell walkers that when you're trying to climb Great Gable from Seathwaite, or even from Honister, where I've set off from today, you find that you have to give up such a lot of altitude because you have to go over Green Gable first, dip down into Windy Gap, and then go up onto Great Gable here. And you can see on that crest there, you can see lots of people making their way down for the final push up from Windy Gap to Great Gable. This is the north face of Great Gable, with the sun peering over the top. Spectacular. Just a pity about the wind. I don't know if I would dare risk putting the drone up. It's quite calm where I'm stood, but as soon as you wander up and out from the fells, the wind picks up. So impressive. Final look back then at Great Gable and Green Gable before I pass over the brow on the path back to the car, and all of this lovely panorama will disappear from view. Now, one of the things we fell walkers have to do every few years is replace worn out boots. And this inevitably involves a period of breaking new boots in and having to put up with blisters and the like, which for me has meant having to take 2 pairs of boots on the fells until this new pair that I've got on are broken in. And in fact, the new pair are in the rucksack now because I've swapped them over for my old boots because they were tearing my feet up. So that's the 3rd walk, and it's getting better, but they're not broken in yet, or rather my feet aren't broken in for the new boot. But it's something that you have to do because unfortunately boots do not last indefinitely, and this old pair that I have is definitely on its last legs. Well, I'm almost at the end of my trip out today. It's been a splendid outing covering 6 miles or so of the fabulous Cumbrian mountain countryside, taking in some great vistas and including a climb up one of the big 4 mountains in the Lake District, Great Gable. So do join me again for another episode of Walking the Fells of Great Britain. Goodbye.